on society. Let me say that again. China, our planet Earth, has cancer right now. Earth has cancer. It has had cancer since the 1970s when Richard Nixon went down to China to try to open up China. That was one of the worst mistakes ever created by a US president. And as a result, the earth has cancer, and that cancer is China. China is a cancer on society. I always thought that the countries that I hated the most were Israel and Saudi Arabia. And while I do hate those countries still, the one country that I detest above all is China. China is a cancer on society. China has given us global warming, and then the politicians blame it on us, and we have to pay carbon taxes. We have to do all these regulations and stuff. China doesn't do any of those things. China gives us SARS. China gives us COVID-19. China takes away our jobs, manufacturing. China's a cancer on society. China has not done anything good for this planet. China is a literal cancer. They treat their people bad too. This video is not necessarily an attack on the Chinese people. They're probably just as big of victims, if not more, than the rest of the world. But this is a video that is anti-China, the country. It is a disgusting country which I would say needs to be wiped off the face of the planet. Now, while that cannot be done, there are ways that we can stick our nose up at China, because China is the SHIT stain on our planet. I have made a disciplined effort, and I am serious. I'm sure most of the stuff in this very house have been made in China. Not anymore. I, at least, am going to make a disciplined effort to avoid anything that is made in China. Anything and everything. I've done the same with Israel and Saudi Arabia, and that was a lot easier. Well, with the exception of the gas, because that can't be helped. The government buys lots of oil and gas from Saudi Arabia, despite the fact that Canada has some of the best oil reserves on the face of the planet. But regardless, if I can help it, I will avoid anything and everything that is made in China. Clothes, socks, underwear, televisions, all of that. I will avoid it if it is made in China. I will do my very best. It will be difficult, but I will try. And if they've monopolized a certain product, well, then I guess I don't have a choice. And if I need it, well, I will either try to find some replacement for it or what have you. But I will do my very best to destroy China economically. I'll do my part. And I urge you to do the same thing. China has done nothing for our society. They have made the world a much more miserable place. If there was no China, there's a good chance that global warming wouldn't be as bad, or as the politicians now want to call it, climate change. Because even though they want to blame us, fact of the matter is most of the carbon comes from either China or India. And it's even more ridiculous to blame Canadians when America emits more carbon than Canada. I mean, we probably emit some of the least amount of carbon, and yet we're forced to pay carbon taxes and all that stuff. But China is by far the premier polluter of the planet. And as far as I know, I don't think their companies pay any taxes. That's why they're all moving to China. That's why I'm trying to do my very best to avoid Walmart, because Walmart is one of the primary benefactors to the Chinese deep state. Most of their products come from China in bulk. I'd rather spend a little bit more money if it was made. It would be even better if it was made in my country, shop locally. I've tried to do that, go to small businesses, small stores, all that stuff. But if I have to get something that's made in Honduras or Taiwan or Japan or okay, fine. I may not be as happy, but I will accept it. But I will not accept things from China if I can help it. I won't. And that's why I'm also trying to avoid some of the big brands, the big global stores. It's funny how the big global stores like Walmart remain open and the small business people are forced to shut down and risk going bankrupt. I have a feeling that our deep state is in cahoots with the Chinese deep state. If it wasn't for China, we wouldn't be seeing coronavirus. If it wasn't for China, we wouldn't have SARS. And I believe these things are done deliberately. I mean, even if we believe the story of the wet markets with the bats and the bears and the snakes and all these sort of stuff packed up in one market, which creates diseases. Fact of the matter is the Chinese government still don't force those things to be shut down. But then a couple weeks after they get infected with something, they're back, they're up and running, they're beating us economically. So, I mean, if it wasn't for China and some other countries, a lot of these Western nations, we would still have loads of manufacturing. Now, it's other countries that also take advantage of us, like Mexico and Argentina and India and Taiwan and all those places. But China is the by far the worst, and they don't even treat their people properly when they do work. So China is a cancer on society. I'll tell you this. If you are being forced to wear a mask at your job, and all this nonsense about social distancing and all this crap about coronavirus and we'll get through this together, this whole statement about we're in this together, that's just another form of Sieg Heil. Heil Hitler. Anytime you hear we're all in this together, just imagine hearing Sieg Heil. That's what I hear. We're not in this together. If we were in this together, Doug Ford wouldn't be going to his cottage every weekend and forcing us to stay at home and being an arrogant SOB. Yes, I am pissed off at Doug Ford. He's being an arrogant SOB, and I don't hear him talk about anything to do with how this is China's fault and all this stuff. He's just toed the establishment line. He can piss off. And Justin the Tackhead and Mac Daddy Trudeau, well, there's not much you can say about him. He says he admires China's basic dictatorship. And I also urge people, if your politicians even get slightly comfortable with China, if you hear a politician talking about creating a free trade deal with China, if you hear a politician talking about how we need to be more respectful to China, you don't vote for them, left or right. You have to be disciplined. You have to be disciplined. You have to be disciplined. You know, you got these politicians who are attacking us and being arrogant with us about how we must stay inside and social distancing and you don't have any rights and you must shut your dirty, stinking, filthy mouth up and you stay inside and you wait for Bill Gates to make a vaccine for you, which will force upon you. But they don't say anything about China. In fact, they mollycoddle China. And if we attack China, they call us racist. If I'm racist for attacking China, then so frigging be it. I am pissed off at China. I spit on China. I piss on China. And to be honest with you, the Chinese people are the biggest victims to China. But they have a responsibility to stand up and fight their government. There's way more of them. There's billions of them. If they were to stand up and fight their system, please. They are cancer on society. And I curse any politician who is forcing me to abide by these new Nazi coronavirus laws, and they don't say anything about China, or they'll praise China and criticize anybody who attacks China. I curse those kind of politicians with every disease in the book: AIDS, sickle cell, Ebola. I curse them with coronavirus, the same virus that they allow China to give us. I curse them with cancer. I curse them with everything. I curse Justin the tacky-headed Mac Daddy Trudeau with cancer and coronavirus on top of that. I don't care if people are going to say I sound too harsh. I don't give a damn what you think. This is a salt channel. This isn't a sugar channel. I'm not going to say things to you that make you feel comfortable. I'm going to say things that are true. Justin the tacky-headed tar-faced Mac Daddy Trudeau deserves coronavirus because he allowed China to give it to us. And I curse him with an extra disease, cancer, for being so close with China, meanwhile forcing us to abide by these new coronavirus Nazi laws. This is similar to when the communists, or maybe even the Nazis, burnt down the Reichstag. I actually think it was the Nazis. They blamed it on the communists. But whoever burned down the Reichstag in 1933, and as a result, Hitler took away all the German people's rights. It's the same thing. This coronavirus was cooked up by the Chinese and probably aided by the big multinational corporations, big pharma and all this stuff. Or at least they allowed it to happen. And as a result, now they're taking away our rights. But we can't say anything about China. And when all this is done and finished and we're all being forced to take vaccines, and if we don't take vaccines, we get sent to a FEMA concentration camp. When all of this is done, they'll go right back to being all mollycoddly up with China, and we must learn from China and trade with China, and all our jobs go to China until they give us the next disease. They give us nothing but disease and destruction and take our jobs as an added insult. China's a cancer on society. I curse China. I curse Xi Jinping. I curse Mao Zedong. If I could urinate on Mao Zedong's grave, I could. I wish I could spit in Xi Jinping's face. We should have never allowed Nixon should have never opened up China. If he had just left China to where they were, they'd probably still be boiling rice grains. And I'm not trying to insult the Chinese people, but you know something, most of you all don't even like China, otherwise you wouldn't be here. And I don't blame you, but your country stinks. And that's why I don't like the fact that Trump is getting so close with North Korea. Let them stay there and stay in their communist hellhole and continue eating rats off the street. Don't let them become too powerful and then they take our jobs and they treat us like China's treating us. Let them stay there. These global communistic nations in Asia are not to be trusted. They give us nothing but destruction and disease. Let them stay there. Let China stay. Should have just stayed where it was with their what's that great leap forward, which was actually a great leap backwards. Mao Zedong destroyed the Chinese economy. Should have let them stay right. If it was Richard Nixon. I am not a crook. Nixon, who went to China, opened up China, and he thought he could have another American puppet against the Soviet Union. And what did China do? They took our jobs and gave us diseases and global warming as well, which we have to pay the price for. We always have to pay the price for China. We have to pay the price when they destroy our ozone layer with their carbon. They don't have any carbon tax. They emit as much carbon as they want. You go to China, the place literally is a blanket of smog. In fact, Chinese people have been wearing masks even before coronavirus because they can't take the smog. Many people say when they go to China, they have to take up smoking because they're not used to the fresh air when they get out of China. We have to pay for that with carbon taxes and regulations for our businesses, which make them go to China even more and emit even more carbon into the atmosphere. We have to pay for China's problems when they create coronavirus and spread it all over the world like butter on bread. And we have to stay inside and we have to shut up. And if we don't shut up, we get arrested like we're in Nazi Germany. We have to line up for our bread and our butter in front of big multinational stores, rain or shine. We have to wear masks at work and we can't even breathe in those masks. They don't give a damn if we can't breathe in those masks. They just say shut up and just be thankful that we're helping you from coronavirus. They're going to force us to take vaccines all because of China. Boycott China. We got to do it. We got to do it. If you don't try to boycott China, you're just as bad. I curse you with cancer and coronavirus. If you don't at least try. If you don't try to boycott China, I disown you. I want you to go to hell. If you're a politician who praises China, left or right, conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat, whatever, and then you praise China and then you force your people into house arrest, you should be burnt at the stake. Burnt at the stake. Justin Trudeau should be burnt at the stake. Joe Biden should be burned at the stake. Emmanuel Macron should be burnt at the stake. I mean, I've heard that Boris Johnson is being too close with China. If that's true, he should burn at the stake. I don't know yet, but we'll see. And if he is, then he should have died of the coronavirus. But I don't know. I don't want to be too hasty. But I've heard that Boris Johnson is getting close with China. I don't know. We'll see. If not, then I apologize for what I said. And before I say what I have to say, I think that these border controls with China should be permanent. I mean, I know many of the Chinese people are good and everything, but they should rise up and destroy their government. That's what I would do if this was happening in Canada. I would rise up and tear at my government. If it was happening this bad, I mean, it's bad in Canada, and I'm getting to that point too. And you can call the RCMP after me if you want. I'm getting to that point where I will rise up and start tearing up people's heads. But if it gets to the point where it's China, I would. But in the meantime, you should stay and fight your government. This is the Arana Nation.